You talk too much? And maybe that's why you're emotionally drained. Hard to hear, I know. But what if I told you that silence, the very thing you avoid, could turn you into the strongest person in the room, the kind of silence that heals, protects, and reveals? While most people scream to seem strong, true sages learn to stay quiet. This isn't weakness, it's mental mastery, emotional intelligence, and Stoic philosophy in action. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, they all mastered this art. And so can you. In this video, I'll show you the 7 Stoic strategies that use silence as a secret weapon to develop mental strength, inner peace, and emotional control. But it's not just any silence. It's a strategic, intentional, powerful silence. With every minute you watch, you'll realize you no longer need to react to everything, explain yourself to everyone, or carry the pressure of appearing strong. You'll learn how to stay calm under pressure, deal with insults wisely, ignore negativity, and become unshakable without saying a single word. But before we dive into this transformative content, do this. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and drop a like, because this will change the way you deal with your mind and your conflicts. And if at any point something resonates with you, leave a comment below. Silence is also strength. Now take a deep breath. Because from this moment on, silence will teach you everything noise has hidden. In a world that never stops screaming, silence becomes an act of courage. Stoic philosophy teaches us that it's precisely in the absence of noise that inner strength begins to speak louder. When we step away from chaos, social media, gossip, external pressures, the mind finally finds room to breathe. It is in this breath that we realize what truly matters. A Stoic doesn't seek the noise of approval, but the clarity of their own thought. Imagine someone trying to hear soft music in a crowded stadium. That's what the mind is like when surrounded by constant stimuli. Loud, distracted, lost. Practicing silence is like leaving the stadium and walking into an open field, where even the sound of the wind brings wisdom. The self-discipline of seeking moments of calm, through meditation, a solitary walk, or simply turning off the phone, opens space for true mental strength to flourish. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, wrote to himself every morning, not to be read by others, but to organize his thoughts away from the voices of the empire. That's mental mastery. It's about creating your own bubble of clarity while the world goes crazy outside. Ancient wisdom reminds us, to evolve you must first silence the outside noise. Silence here isn't absence, it's presence. Those who learn to hear their own silence gain the power of perception, the ability to distinguish what is real from mere emotional noise. It reduces stress and strengthens emotional control because you stop reacting impulsively and begin responding consciously. A powerful exercise is spending 15 minutes a day in pure silence without distractions. Maybe drinking coffee without your phone, gazing at the sky, or just breathing deeply. It changes everything. As this habit grows, you begin to see that many of your anxieties were just echoes of the world, not your true voice. Anxiety often stems from overstimulation, constant comparison, and a rush that isn't even yours. Silence brings you back to center. It's like the soul saying, "Now that you've listened, I can guide you." This is the foundation of self-knowledge and the beginning of real self-mastery. And the more you connect with that inner voice, the easier it becomes to deal with provocations and conflict. But we'll talk more about that in the next point. Not every attack deserves a response. Sometimes the most powerful reaction is simply not reacting. Stoic philosophy shows us that silence is a response loaded with strength, especially when used in the face of conflict. When someone provokes you and you choose to remain silent, not out of fear but out of mental mastery, you break the cycle of aggression. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Choosing silence is holding that power in your hands. A practical example: when insulted, instead of snapping back, take a deep breath and look the other person in the eyes, not with hatred, but with presence. That calm gaze paired with silence disarms any aggressor. You don't stoop to the level of the offense. That's emotional control in its purest form. And more, you protect your energy, avoid regret, and walk away from impulsive reactions that only feed the other's ego. It's like refusing to throw wood on a fire. It burns out on its own. Seneca taught that those who are easily irritated show their weakness. The wise person, on the other hand, remains silent. But it's not a silence of suppression. It's a silence born from choosing the path of wisdom over the battlefield. Anger is only fueled by response. If you don't give ammunition, the other is left frustrated with their own emptiness. This attitude demands self-discipline and mental strength, but the result is an inner peace that no one can take from you. In family environments, for instance, when someone starts an unnecessary argument, just listen and offer a soft smile as if saying, "I have nothing to prove anymore." That posture, inspired by the Stoic life philosophy, is a shield against emotional exhaustion. Over time, you realize that staying calm under pressure is far more rewarding than winning meaningless arguments. It's liberating. Remember, silence is not the absence of a response. It is a superior response. It protects your integrity, prevents you from saying things you'll regret later, and shows the world that you're not shaken by petty provocations. That's practical wisdom. Instead of yelling to be heard, the Stoic stays silent to be respected. And there's no respect more powerful than that which is born from self-control. And the truth is, when you stop reacting, you start observing. And what you see in silence is far more revealing than it seems. But we'll explore that in the next point. There's a kind of wisdom that isn't learned by speaking, but by staying silent. When the Stoic chooses silence, they activate one of the greatest tools for personal growth: observation. While everyone is busy trying to be noticed, the true sage is paying attention to what no one else sees. A raised eyebrow, a pause in speech, a subtle glance away. All these say more than 1,000 words. To be silent is to sharpen the vision of the soul. Stoicism reminds us that the world is a stage, and only those who sit silently in the audience can see the whole plot. Those on center stage, constantly speaking, miss the details. Have you noticed how the wisest people are often the quietest? They speak little because they absorb much. That's how they train their power of perception. In social situations, try listening twice as much as you speak. You'll notice things you never saw before. This kind of silent listening protects you. When you observe, you grasp hidden intentions, avoid manipulation and sidestep emotional traps. It's like seeing the pieces move before the game even begins. That's emotional intelligence in action, mental mastery brought to life. Instead of reacting in the heat of the moment, you analyze and choose the best way to act, with calm, clarity, and strategy. Picture a tense work meeting. While everyone talks over each other, you listen, take notes, and spot who's undermining others, who's afraid, and who's just trying to look important. That active silence becomes your greatest advantage. It allows you to act with precision instead of panic. Seneca would say, "He who sees clearly acts effectively." That's exactly what separates the impulsive from the wise. Stoic philosophy teaches, the less you speak, the more you see, and the more you see, the stronger you become emotionally. This helps you stay calm under pressure, deal with insults better, and choose your battles wisely. It's not about hiding, it's about positioning yourself from a place of understanding. In this case, silence is your internal radar working at full power. And all of this starts to make even more sense when you realize that the loudest noise isn't always outside. Sometimes it's coming from your own head. And that's exactly where we're heading next. A restless mind is like a room full of people talking all at once. You understand nothing and leave exhausted. Stoicism teaches that to achieve inner peace, you must also silence your thoughts. Yes, the loudest noise doesn't come from outside, but from within. And the only way to quiet it is with discipline. This isn't solved by ignoring the chaos, but by training your focus. Thinking too much? Breathe. Feeling anxious? Write. Racing mind? Be still. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, didn't write to impress others. He wrote to organize what he felt and bring clarity to what he thought. That's what disciplined silence does. It transforms confusion into direction. A practical habit is to reserve 10 minutes in the morning to do absolutely nothing. Just sit and breathe. No phone, no news, no notifications. That simple act trains your mind to obey you, not the other way around. Reducing mental noise is an exercise in self-discipline. It's like taming a wild horse. At first it resists, but then it follows your lead. A trained mind becomes your greatest weapon against stress, fear, and overwhelming thoughts. The truth is, you don't need to control everything. Just learn not to lose yourself in everything you think. That's emotional control in action. That's resilience training. When you create inner silence, you access a clarity few people ever experience. You begin to separate real thoughts from paranoia, fact from fantasy. This helps you avoid impulsive decisions, relieves unnecessary anxiety, and strengthens your mental power. Want a simple tip? During the day, close your eyes for 2 minutes and just observe your breath. It may seem small, but this reprograms your brain to leave autopilot mode. And this type of practice changes everything, because those who master the mind master life. You stop reacting on impulse and start choosing how to respond. That's the power of perception. It's ancient wisdom operating in the 21st century. And when you learn to control what you think, you naturally begin to master what you feel. And that's where silence begins to touch the roots of your emotions. And right there, in this emotional territory, lies one of the Stoic philosophy's most valuable skills: self-mastery in the face of inner storms. We'll explore that in the next point. Few have the courage to stay silent when they feel like screaming. Stoicism reveals that true self-mastery is not about repressing emotions, but about choosing what to do with them. Staying silent in the face of anger, frustration, or provocation isn't weakness. It's pure mental strength. When you choose silence, not out of fear but out of inner power, you prove to yourself that you are not a slave to your impulses. That alone is golden. Seneca said, "The greatest power is not being ruled by your emotions." And that begins with silence. Think of a moment when you were in a heated argument, but managed to stay quiet and avoided saying something you would later regret. That choice wasn't small, it was the mark of your growth. That's where inner peace is born. Instead of defending yourself, you observe. Instead of panicking, you breathe. Instead of retaliating, you walk away with dignity. That's the posture of someone who understands the value of silence. Silence is like an invisible armor. It doesn't stop the arrows from coming, but it stops you from bleeding in vain. More than that, it builds unshakable self-trust. Those who learn to stay silent at the right time feel like they've conquered themselves. And conquering yourself is the highest of victories, according to the Stoics. A practical tip: whenever you feel like exploding, mentally say to yourself, "I am not this thought. I am the one observing it." That changes everything. Practicing this every day strengthens your self-discipline. You get to know yourself better. You know when to retreat, when to persist, and most importantly, when to protect your peace. This kind of practical wisdom keeps you out of pointless fights, unnecessary arguments, and decisions that come with a high cost. Silence in this case is not the absence of words. It is the presence of awareness. It's your way of saying enough without uttering a word. The Stoic way of life doesn't promise you'll never feel angry or sad. It teaches you how to deal with it wisely. And often the wisest response is silence. This self-control earns you respect, attracts trust, and strengthens your relationships. Because those who master themselves inspire others, and more importantly, they attract peace, because they stop responding to every little provocation. But silence isn't only about protecting yourself. It also opens a vital space, the space to learn on a deeper level. And it's exactly that space that leads us to the next point. Knowing how to listen is one of the greatest forms of wisdom, but also one of the most forgotten. Stoic philosophy teaches that staying silent in order to listen is a sign of strength, not weakness. Those who interrupt constantly are usually trying to prove themselves. Those who truly listen are willing to grow. The Stoic understands that silence also serves to create space to welcome, reflect, and evolve. And in that space, transformation happens. Have you noticed how rare it is to find someone who actually listens? Most people are just waiting for their turn to speak. But those who practice active listening develop empathy, emotional intelligence, and analytical power. Want a practical exercise? In a difficult conversation, instead of responding quickly, mentally repeat, "I'll listen to the end. Only speak if your words will add value." This avoids misunderstandings, unnecessary arguments, and presents you as someone with firm presence. Epictetus said we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, because we should listen twice as much as we speak. This Stoic maxim isn't just poetic, it's practical. When you listen with your heart, you start to understand what people truly feel. You notice patterns, intentions, and even hidden pain between the lines. This makes you wiser, more respected, and better equipped to handle life's conflicts. Active listening also improves your decision-making. By absorbing different viewpoints, you broaden your perception, avoid rushed judgments, and make clearer choices. That's the power of perception in action. In the workplace, for instance, listening attentively can prevent major problems, uncover hidden solutions, and even strengthen your leadership. In this case, silence becomes a strategic tool for influence. And the most curious part, the more you listen, the more you learn about yourself. Because when you silence your urge to speak, you begin to see how much your ego wants to dominate. And that's where real resilience training begins. Putting the ego aside to open yourself to learning. Active listening is an exercise in humility and self-discipline, two central pillars of Stoic philosophy. But there's a kind of silence that goes beyond listening to others. It's the silence that connects you with something greater than yourself. And when you reach that level of awareness, something profound shifts inside you. That's exactly what we'll explore next. There's a silence that isn't empty. It's full. A silence where answers emerge, even without questions. Stoic philosophy called this connection logos, the universal reason, the divine intelligence that governs all things. And to access it, you must quiet the mind, stop the noise of desires, stop running on the outside, and start listening on the inside. It is in this deep silence that purpose, clarity, and a peace not dependent on external things begin to arise. Have you ever had that moment when you're alone in a quiet place and suddenly perceive something you'd never noticed before? That's your higher consciousness speaking. It might happen during a walk in nature, while gazing at the sea, or even in a moment of silent prayer. In those moments, there's no distraction, no pressure, just you and something greater. The Stoics lived to cultivate this state. It's not about escaping the world, but about finding lucidity within it. When you silence yourself, your intuition begins to speak, and intuition is the compass of the soul. It shows what makes sense even when the world says otherwise. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes stronger when it retreats within itself." That is more relevant today than ever. In a world that keeps yelling for you to be more, have more, show more, the Stoic grows quiet, listens, and decides based on essence. This is ancient wisdom with modern application. A simple exercise to activate this. Before sleeping, turn off all the lights, close your eyes, and ask yourself, what truly matters tomorrow? It's not magic, it's focus. Without external stimuli, your mind begins to align thought, emotion, and action. That's mental mastery. It's like stopping a chaotic race and finally finding a clear path. That's pure self-improvement, born from silence. And more, when you access this higher consciousness, you become unshakable. Because now you know who you are, what you want, and what you will no longer tolerate. Silence becomes your inner temple, and from that point on, any noise from the world loses its power to destabilize you. That's the kind of strength that doesn't need to be proven, it's simply felt. And speaking of strength, there's a type of silence that not only protects, but commands respect. A silence that becomes its own language. And that's exactly what we'll talk about in the final point. Some people need to shout to feel heard. Others just need to look in silence and everyone understands. When silence comes from inner strength, it transforms into a powerful language. The Stoics knew this. Those who know themselves deeply don't spend their lives trying to explain themselves. Silence says, I don't need to prove anything because I already know who I am. That kind of presence carries a natural authority. It doesn't force respect, it earns it. Marcus Aurelius didn't write to please the people. He wrote to keep his soul grounded. Seneca didn't preach emotional control to appear wise. He lived it every day. They knew true leadership comes from inner coherence. And silence, in that context, isn't passivity. It's presence. It's a way of saying, I'm not here to react to everything. I'm here to live with purpose. And that changes everything. In moments of conflict, the silence of someone with mental mastery is more unsettling than any scream. It makes others reflect, step back, and even question themselves. because the ego expects noise, expects confrontation. But when you respond with serenity and presence, the other person's ego becomes confused. It's like refusing to feed a beast. It gets weaker. That's the power of perception combined with self-discipline. And here's the paradox. This kind of silence attracts. People trust those who speak less and act more. It applies to relationships, business, and any human interaction. Well-placed silence conveys emotional intelligence, maturity, and resilience. You're not shaken by criticism, not desperate for approval, and not drained by things beyond your control. This is Stoic philosophy lived in real life. Want a challenge? Next time someone tries to push your buttons, say nothing. Just breathe, keep a calm gaze, and walk away if needed. Then observe how they react. You'll notice that often the loudest one is the one with the least reason. The wise person, on the other hand, speaks only when necessary, and with weight. Their silence carries 1,000 meanings, all clear, without raising their voice. Now tell me honestly, how many times have you regretted speaking when you should have stayed silent? How many arguments could you have avoided? How much pain could you have spared if you had chosen silence over an impulsive reaction? Stoicism isn't just a beautiful philosophy. It's a way of life that teaches you how not to be shaken, how to remain calm, even when everything around you is out of control. And silence is the thread that weaves this transformation together. You've seen that in each of these strategies, silence wasn't passivity. It was concentrated power. It protects you, strengthens you, gives you clarity, and even connects you with your higher self. But none of this matters if you don't apply it. So the question now is, which of these strategies will you start practicing today? Will you remain silent when provoked? Will you quiet your mind to hear your intuition? Will you listen more and speak less? Comment below which point hit you the hardest. And more than that, share this video with someone who lives on autopilot, who explodes easily, who's burning out from reacting too much. Show them there's another way. And if you want to continue this journey of self-mastery, ancient wisdom, and mental discipline, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because here we go deep, with content, with truth, and with purpose.